You're listening to Clearview Today with Dr. Abadan Shah, a daily show that engages mind and heart for the gospel of Jesus Christ. I'm Ryan Hill.
I'm John Galantis, and thank you so much for joining us this week right here on the Clearview Today show. We're back in the studio with our host, Dr. Abadan Shah, who is a PhD in New Testament textual criticism, professor at Carolina University, author, full-time pastor, and the host of today's show. Dr. Shah, welcome to the studio this week.
It's good to be here. Good to be here. Lots happening in the world, lots happening around us, and we need to talk about it from a biblical perspective,
That's
how
right.
to understand all this and how to have a biblical stand, even if some people we may admire or think a lot of
Yeah,
don't always do the same.
that's right.
You know, I was thinking about it the other day that in the timeline of developing the Clearview Today show and just sitting down and talking and praying about opportunities coming at the right time, it really was the right time with the way that things have shifted on the world stage and the way that
yes.
players have kind of risen and fallen and countries have kind of come into the limelight. It's really unbelievable that we've been given this platform at this moment in history.
Yes.
And I never could have seen this being like something that we talk about world events, because we always, Christians and we talked about this before. Christians like to stay in their bubble.
Yeah.
Christians like to say, let's just talk about Jesus. We'll just talk about the Bible. We might give you a little devotional here too, but things that are going out in the world, that's the world and that's evil, and so we're not going to touch that. But starting, this show, the way that it, like you said, Ryan, the way that it evolved over time, it sort of became unavoidable that all these things, because people start looking to you, Dr. Shah, they start wanting to know what you think about these things. The more that your voice and your platform has grown, the more people have really turned to you to say, what do we think about this?
Yeah.
Right. And that's why for years I've been writing on these matters. I have a newspaper column. I have a blog site, and I have been talking about these issues. And of course, from my in my messages on the pulpit, I have talked about these issues so that people can be educated and they don't have to wonder, where does our church stand? Where does our pastor stand?
That's right.
What is a biblical perspective? Now, of course, there will be people here and there who will disagree, and that's fine. But at least they should know what they're disagreeing with.
That's right.
And if they're truly study the issues, they will understand why we stand on certain issues a certain way. And so today we're going to talk about some one of those issues, which right now is the talk of the town.
Yeah. I don't really know what to think of it. You want to start us with the verse of the day?
Yeah, absolutely. So the verse of the day today is coming from Romans chapter 11, verse 26. And so all Israel will be saved, as it is written, the deliverer will come out of Zion, and he will turn away ungodliness from Jacob.
Good reminder for us and a lot of those Christians who have forgotten that all Israel will be saved. This isn't something like God just said that in the moment, and he's like, well, shoot, they turned away again. I don't know. I guess I'll just replace them with the church. All of Israel will be saved. That's God's word.
Yeah, that's right. And for those of you who are confused by that verse or not sure how to interpret that, I have made a statement some time back in a message. I said, not all generations are equal. What that means is not every generation has the same purpose. The generation in which, let's just say, Noah lived was a different generation.
That's right.
Only, 6 people were able to, 8 people were able to get God's plan and get on the ark. That was a very different generation. Imagine a generation where only 8 people are left in the world.
Yeah.
That's it.
That's wild.
And I would say prior to the flood, the entire world was covered with people.
Yeah.
Only 8 are found who were sort of...
That's going to affect the way that generation thinks and behaves. I can't think of anything that would.
And even there, I would say only Noah probably was the righteous one. I don't know about all his sons. But anyways, that's a different generation. Then there was a generation that lived in... during the time of the Exodus. That's a different generation. Then there was a generation, many of them died in the wilderness. Then a generation that went into the promised land. Well, if you want to fast forward, there was a generation that was waiting for the coming of the Messiah, the consolation of Israel. That's when Jesus came. And I believe in the end times, there will be a generation for whom this prophecy in Romans chapter 10 has been given, or chapter 9 has been given. Can you read that passage again?
Yeah. And so all Israel will be saved, as it is written, the deliverer will come out of Zion, and he will turn away ungodliness from Jacob.
And what is the passage?
Romans 11:26.
11. I'm sorry, I said 9. But 9 through 11 are about the role of ethnic Israel in
right.
the end times.
That's right.
And in that generation, so not all Jewish people from all times, or not all Israelites from all times, or all Hebrews. No, many probably are lost.
Mm-hmm.
But many were saved. But this is the generation.
And this is a special doctrine, Dr. Shaw, because this is not a doctrine that we just can sit around and we can't afford to sit around and pontificate and ponder and give little points. Like, Israel is in the news right now.
Right.
You know, Israel is this is one of the most relevant Christian doctrines, I would say, right now. And it's crazy because I didn't, before October 7th, I would have never expected that would have been the case, that this is something that we could sit around and we could talk about and we could say, well, no, I think Israel still has a part to play. But now it's like, this really, really matters.
There's so many people who have that perspective of like the church replacing Israel, and you know, that's kind of infected various schools of thought. But Israel, whether or not we stand with Israel, has always been the question. You know, are we going to ally with Israel? Are we going to not stand with Israel? Are we not going to support them here? But especially, like you're saying, John, especially now, I mean, that Israel is at the forefront of world events. That is a huge deal. We've got to answer it for ourselves individually. We've got to answer it as a nation. We've got to answer it as believers.
Mhm.
What does this mean for the church at large? We've got to provide answers for this because people are asking.
And one of the biggest advantages, I would say, Dr. Shaw, is that we are standing with Israel right now. We are making, as a nation, we are making the conscious choice to stand with Israel and support them in this.
And we should do that. And God's people have done it throughout history because we don't know which generation it is. So to once again sort of go back to what I said, not all generations are equal. People often go, oh, okay, well, where did you get that from? All right, so Matthew chapter 24 and verse 34. Matthew 24:34 says, assuredly I say to you, this generation will by no means pass away till all these things take place. This generation, that was not necessarily the generation in which Jesus was walking the streets of Galilee or Jerusalem. Now, this is the generation for whom Matthew 24 prophecies are given. And so, yes, it may be that we are living in that generation in 2025, that we are seeing the Jewish people under attack. And maybe this is that generation that God will use to bring his people back to himself. This is the generation that will have to face persecution. And this is the generation to whom the Messiah will come. And all Israel will be saved.
There may be someone listening and they're saying, well, what are the odds of that? What are the odds that we're that actual generation after all this time has passed? But I like one thing that you have said before. You did a series on the proto-evangelion, the Genesis 3:15, where every Jewish woman who ever lived after that had to live as though she might be the one.
That's right.
They had to live with that type of faith. So also with us, like, even if we're not that generation, we're supposed to live as though we are.
Right. That's right. And that's also was part of their Passover ceremony. When they would, observe the Passover, even to this day, they would say that as if I have come out of Egypt. They don't say like as they came out, as I came.
All right.
So every generation could be the one, and this may be the one, and we should always support Israel.
That's right.
But you know, there's a really strange clip that's circulating around social media right now. We just saw it last night. Dr. Shaw actually sent it to me, and we got together and said, I think we should talk about this. Tucker Carlson.
Yeah.
What is wrong with this guy?
I mean, this interview just off the rails where he's, pretty much attacking Ted Cruz.
I have watched Tucker Carlson interviews before and more or less liked them. You know what I mean? Like I've seen some where he will go after liberals and he'll be like, oh, aren't they crazy and aren't they silly and blah, blah, blah. All that's fine and good. But he's interviewing Ted Cruz. In fact, I think we have the clip. Do you want to watch the clip?
Sure.
All right.
You don't know the population of the country you seek to topple?
How many people live in Iran?
92 million.
Okay. Yeah.
How could you not know that?
I don't sit around memorizing population tables.
Well, it's kind of relevant because you're calling for the overthrow of the government.
I am not the Tucker Carlson expert on Iran.
You're a senator who's calling for the overthrow of the government.
You're the one who claims
about the country.
No, you don't know anything about the country. You're the one who claims they're not trying to murder Donald Trump. You're the
I'm not
one
saying that.
who can't figure out if it was a good idea to kill General Soleimani, and you said it was bad.
They're trying to murder Trump.
Yes, I do.
Because you're not calling for military strikes against them in retaliation. And if you really believe that,
we're carrying out military strikes today.
You said Israel was.
Right, with our help. I said we. Israel is leading them, but we're supporting them.
100%. He only knew the population of Iran because he looked it up prior to this interview.
Absolutely. There's no way he just had that in his
No
back pocket.
way. He said, I think it's really important as an informed person, I should know the population of Iran. He looked it up before. There's no way I had that at the ready.
My question is, and Senator Cruz, he says, I'm not trying to, eradicate the country. We're trying to overthrow the government. We're trying to, bring about change there. My question is the population relevant? Do we need to know the population density in Iran to carry out aggressive action?
Bottom line is Tucker Carlson wanted to find a way to make Ted Cruz look ignorant, not up to date with what he's doing, just one of these right wingers who jump on a bandwagon and just go with it. And that's what he was trying to do. But as I watched the interview, and of course, most times I have watched Tucker Carlson, walked away going, okay, that was good. I liked it.
Mm-hmm.
This gave me such a bad taste in my mouth for Tucker Carlson.
Yeah, it gave me the ick. It gave me the ick. Tucker Carlson 100% gave me.
Yeah, it's just not a good look. I mean, he looks petty. He looks like
he is like a little child who is purposely trying to goad and trying to harass somebody to make himself look better. But I'm sorry, in the moment, maybe you want a few people on your side that they're saying, wow, there you go. You let Ted Cruz have it. But I can promise you, I don't think this is going to work out so well for Tucker Carlson.
No, the only people who I think actually liked that were people who already did not like Ted Cruz. They don't want to see him win a quote unquote debate. I don't even think that was supposed to be a debate. I think that was supposed to be just an interview. But at the same time, it's not good rhetoric. It's not good arguing because guess what? The population genuinely is not very. You don't have to know the population to suggest military intervention.
Right.
Why do you need to know that?
Right. As long as you know a rough number or know that it's about maybe 100 million.
Yeah.
I mean, he may have said that, or maybe it was like maybe 80 million. I mean, that's fine to do that. That's not the real issue. The real issue is what has been Iran's role over the past decades in bringing turmoil and violence and terrorist attacks all over the world, especially against Israel, also against America.
And you can do that, by the way. Like Tucker Carlson is a professional troll. Like he does this. Like, and I typically I really don't really have a problem with it because he's typically at least making somewhat good points. But you can do that with anything.
Yeah.
Like you could be like, so Ryan, is that microphone right there? Is that a cardioid or is that a condenser or is that a dynamic mic?
I don't know.
You're a radio host. How can you not know? You mean you use that every day and you don't know?
I do. I just talking to the microphone.
Okay.
Do you know what it is?
I mean, yeah, but still.
I know.
Guess what I'm saying is you can do that with anything.
Right.
If Ted Cruz had known the population, Tucker Carlson would have just picked something.
He would. That's you're 100% right. He would have just picked another detail to try to trip Senator Cruz up on, and just, I mean, it just shows that it's not a good interview setup. He's not ready to engage with the content. He's just trying to trip him up.
But here's my question, Dr. Schott. If that had been a liberal, if that had been someone on the left, someone who was very anti-Israel, I would say, oh, okay, of course, that's a completely appropriate way for them to conduct an interview. Why this? Why is the goal to trip up Ted Cruz?
So behind all of this is, I call it the isolationist policy that Tucker Carlson and people like him espouse. Isolationist policy says Americans should mind their own business and not get entangled in another nation's economic or whatever policies or their problems. Don't get involved with other people. And to some extent, I understand that. I agree with it. To some things you have to go, they need to sort that out. But there is a major flaw. It's evidence that you don't really understand how foreign policies work. You don't understand how world governments work when you say don't get involved. To give you an illustration, years ago when I was, I think this was the year 2000, I went to visit my family, and we took my wife and, of course, our two kids at the time, Rebecca and Abigail. They were little kids. So this was 2000. We went to visit my dad. And while there, different churches invited me to come and preach, of course, because I was going in the ministry. I was in the ministry. I was pastoring already here. And so they invited me to come, and I did. And after one of those preaching Sundays, afterwards, we were invited to the pastor's home for lunch. And so we went there. And I remember a conversation began between my dad and the pastor of the church and maybe one or two of their deacons.
Mhm.
And so the conversation began, and I couldn't help overhearing. And my dad said, "No, but who is saying that? What's going on?" And I remember the pastor and a couple of the other deacons saying, "Oh, just we will resolve it. It's not a big deal." And my dad kept asking, "No. Who is it? I need to know." And or what's going on, or doing what? It's just an internal matter. It's just we don't want to publicize that. And so when all was said and done, of course, they finally gave in and told my dad everything. I asked my dad, I said, why did you want to know so badly? He said, because I am the moderator of the association. And sooner or later, of the synod
Right.
association, sooner or later, that's going to come before me. I know what they're doing. I wanted to hear from them what was happening, because it's going to cause a lot of turmoil in the synod. It's going to cause problem among fellow churches.
Right.
So, and that's just an illustration of how America has to see what happens in the world.
But I can see why people would bristle at that. Like it would be like, you don't get involved in another church's drama. But I'm not doing this to try to get involved in some drama. I'm trying to protect the unity of our fellow churches.
And again, it was his position. This is not like if a neighboring church is having problem that I need to go involved.
Yeah, good point.
This was a synod of which he was the president.
Good point. Great
of
point.
these churches.
So he has that leadership.
Yeah, it was a denominational.
It's his duty.
Yeah, it's a denominational issue that was happening.
Great point.
So also so I'm not for a moment advocating that go and get involved in other churches' mess. No, that's not. His position was the synod president.
Yeah.
You know, in that position, he had to know what was happening so he could address and maybe sort of fend off any other problems that were on the horizon, because these people were about to make a big mistake and big mess. Also with the world, America may not be the synod president, as in like somebody voted to elect us as the president of the world, but we are. We are.
Like functionally, we are.
Functionally, we are.
Yeah.
And to say that we're not is ignorance and foolishness. So when things happen in the world, and I'm not saying go get involved in any, skirmish somewhere, but when there are major issues like what's happening in the Middle East or what's happening in Europe, we have to step up.
That's right.
You say, why do we need to? Because our young men and women will die. Oh, I understand that. But if we don't, somebody will fill the vacuum.
Right.
Somebody will make themselves the leader. And now those people will band under that somebody, and then that somebody inevitably is going to turn to America and challenge us.
That's right.
Challenge us, whether it's defensively, challenge us, whether it's economically, socially, you name it, culturally, they're going to challenge us.
Yeah. That's right.
Left unchecked, somebody will take the position of being the leader of the world.
And that's a law of the universe. You know, you taught physics. You know that a vacuum by definition will be filled. It can't exist as a vacuum.
Yeah.
And I think that's something we need to remember.
It's especially true in leadership structures. I mean, the maxim goes, power abhors a vacuum. Like,
that's right.
People will find a way to step into that role. And why not? I mean, if we have that role, the country that prioritizes liberty and freedom and looking out for others, why not, founded on biblical values? Let's maintain that, and let's be the one to step in and intervene where needed.
You know, this past few months, we just wrapped up a series on the book of Judges, and we saw that especially in leadership, when there's a vacuum in leadership, it's never the case that someone who's godly and godly and like Christian and got the right values, they never are the ones that like, yeah, I'll do it. It's always the pagans.
That's because they're usually not the power hungry.
Right. It's always the people,
the wicked people that are power hungry,
don't want rising up. They're like, shoot, if no one else is going to step up, I'll do it.
Also, this is not a simple issue, because throughout the history of our nation, we have wrestled with this issue, whether or not we should get involved. I mean, even going all the way back to the Revolutionary generation. George Washington talked about this. The Monroe Doctrine come down to the time of Teddy Roosevelt. Whether or not with Japan, what's happening at the time? Should we or should we not get involved? World War One. Should we or should we not get involved? World War Two. Okay, so this has been something that has been has been argued over for a long time.
Yeah.
But every time we did stand up and fight, of course, people always bring up like a Vietnam. Oh, you don't know. Look at how unnecessary was that. Of course, I understand there was bad foreign policy and things that should have been done right weren't done right. I get it. I mean, it's not clean and perfect, but not getting involved gives the wrong people power.
Yeah.
When we don't show up in this Middle Eastern conflict, guess who is in charge? Russia is in charge.
Yeah, that's right.
And don't ever think they are our friends.
I spoke to, we've spoken to, there's Vietnam veterans in our church, and a lot of them have said, that people learned the wrong lesson.
Yeah.
Which is going over there and getting involved was a mistake. And that's not the lesson that we should have learned. Like you said, yes, that could have been handled better. That leadership could have been different. Strategy could have been different. But the lesson to learn is not, hey guys, see, don't ever get involved in a fight that's not yours.
Yeah.
Right. That's not the answer. Iran is getting more and more powerful. And look at what they've done. October 7, 2023 should be a warning to us that when left unchecked, this is what people like this do.
Mm-hmm.
This is what came through Hamas. This is what happened later on, the Ring of Fire, where Hezbollah from the north. This is the Houthis in Yemen. And of course, there are people who argue and say, oh, that's not really an Iranian proxy, whatever. I mean, do you really think that they carry a lineage walking around? It's like, yeah, we are the proxy. Let me tell you how. Of course, this is all based on deceit. Yeah. This is all based on saying, hey, I don't know, we were not involved.
Yeah.
What are you talking about? Show us. It's all based on lies.
Yeah.
So, but when they could not have obtained those weapons other than through Iran.
Right.
You have to make that call.
Right. So operating through these proxies and these other entities, but now in the forefront is Iran, and this is where the conflict this is where we find ourselves.
We did an episode on Iran, like a deep dive into Iran, their backstory, and even their future story. And it is sort of hard to reconcile like all this evil that's coming out of there now with the plan of God that ultimately one day they'll be redeemed. They'll be fulfilled.
Known as Elam, right?
Right, yeah. Exactly.
In Isaiah.
And it's just one of those things that you have to sort of wrestle with, and you have to say, what do we do? And Dr. John, maybe that's the question, is what do we do in the here and now? Just the everyday Christian.
I mean, definitely pray for our nation, pray for Israel, pray for the peace of Israel, pray for these people, the Iranian people. Definitely, they have been under this subjugation for a long time.
That's something I think people aren't saying.
Right.
They're not talking about.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, they've been victims as well. I mean, there are people who living in Iran who are victims of this power-hungry elite that run the country.
That's right. And so pray for them. And I've seen a couple of videos here and there, people saying, hey, listen, guys, y'all need to stop because y'all are bombing the civilians, okay? Iranian, the regime is on the run. Okay, let this play out. I don't believe it one bit.
Yeah, no.
This is old propaganda coming through again.
That's right.
And they're using good people to do that. I'm sure they're threatening them. You better say it or else.
Yeah.
So propaganda, don't listen to propaganda. Israel does not need to stop until it is done. And America needs to stay right there with Israel. And all the free nations of the world should join in and say, hey, look, we're standing here.
That's right.
And help end this decades-long misery and, of course, the violence that has been around. And so for Tucker Carlson, going back to him, to do what he did, it's shameful. It's wrong. And I, for one, I'm not going to be watching him much.
Yeah. No, I've unsubscribed from Tucker Carlson. I really don't. He's a gotcha guy. You know what I mean? I can tell. And I'm not a journalist. I'm not speaking on behalf of journalists. You're much more of a journalist than I am because you actually majored in that field. But the point is never, like with us, the point is never to say, oh, gotcha. I dominated you in this conversation. And I feel like most, if not all, of his conversations are about that way. Like I said, it's fun to watch when he's doing it with liberals and he's doing it with people who are crazy and he knows he's going to get the upper hand in this conversation. But this is a man, Ted Cruz is a man who's trying to do the right thing, trying to stand for American and Christian ideals.
That's right. And somebody just sent Tucker Carlson a certificate saying, "Great job.
Really?
You're a very smart guy."
oh, you're saying that's what they need to do?
They just give him a certificate.
and
saying, "You're a smart guy." Okay.
Pat on the back. That's
Yeah,
good.
there you go. Yeah.
Scratch your belly like the dog that you are.
Yeah,
do what you
great
need.
job.
That confused, and I can tell because I mean, like I said, I've been an internet troll before. I know what it's like. That really confused when he's like, "Oh, you don't
know
what?
that?
Huh?
I would think you would know that.
Okay, well, like he's acted disheveled. Like, okay, let me rephrase because I thought you would have known. Okay, well, whatever. I'm like, yeah, this dude's trying to.
Yeah, that lost a lot of respect.
Yeah. Dr. Shaw, as we're wrapping up the conversation, though, there are people, I'm sure there are people, maybe more on the right than on the left, who are saying, but Tucker does have a good point. America needs to watch out for itself first.
Yeah.
What would you say?
Well, Tucker Carlson also said that Russia is not wrong for what it did in Ukraine.
Seriously, he said that?
Yeah, because they're looking out for themselves. Yeah, I mean, the silly things. I had a little kid tell me that one time. I talked about how we need to stand up for Ukraine and we need to deal with Russia. What do you mean? What do you mean? I mean, they're looking out for themselves like we should. I'm like, for one, don't come up against me with your limited knowledge based on watching a few reels of Tucker Carlson.
Right.
Secondly, you don't understand world politics one bit.
Yeah.
Right.
What is the population of Russia?
Oh no!
Answer that question.
If I can't answer that, I can't speak.
Well, I can't either. So
I don't know.
No, the whole point was, it is based on a very selfish, self-centered behavior
Yes.
that they're looking out for themselves, and we should look out for ourselves too. No, what makes America great is the fact that we're built on Judeo-Christian values. To be built on Judeo-Christian values not only means that, hey, we are a successful nation that takes care of our own. No, it means that we love God and we love our neighbor as ourselves.
That's right. That's right.
You have no idea over there in the other part of the world how people welcome Americans. Stop listening to the liberal media. Stop listening to such right-wingers who have an ulterior motive. Most of the time, when people see American flags, they are happy.
Yeah.
They are happy to see them. Whether it's in Iraq, Iran, whether it's in Africa, whether it's in South America, whether it's in Europe, they're happy to see the American flag. Why? Because they know Americans, if they come, they're coming to bring help.
That's right.
They're coming to save us from the oppressors. And so stop listening to the negative, secular, humanistic, socialist rhetoric that America is hated everywhere. We should stop and it's wrong. Don't listen to that.
That's right.
We are usually welcomed because we bring help, we bring hope, we represent freedom, liberty. That's what we represent. And sometimes the very people we're helping may also turn against us.
That's true. That's true.
It's the fact of life. Okay, that's how it happened to Jesus, right?
That's right.
I mean, the very people he was saving were also nailing him to the cross.
That's
Good point.
right.
Good
But that's like my dad told me years ago when I was complaining about this, that, and the other. He's like, son, just be like Jesus. You know what the Bible says about Jesus? He went about doing good. It's just keep doing good.
That's right.
Can't do that if you isolate yourself from the world.
Amen. Amen.
Such a good reminder for us. Guys, write in and let us know what you took away from today's episode, 252-582-5028. We love hearing from you guys. Big thanks to our sponsors for making today's episode possible. And don't forget that you can support us by subscribing to the show on iTunes if you want to re-listen. And you can always support us financially at clearviewtodayshow.com. John, what do you want to close with today?
We passed 16,000 followers on pray.com. Thank you so much to everyone who is following us, who is supporting us, both just supporting us in your prayers and your follows, but also supporting us financially. Every single month. We really, really appreciate all of our donors, our sponsors of the show today. Thank you so much for your support. We love you, we support you, and we value you.
That's right. We love you guys. We'll see you next time on Clearview Today.